Oh, I was an English teacher. I'm a recovering English teacher.
I knew that.
I suppose technically I'm a recovering English teacher also because I'm not one now.
Oh, there you go. So you're recovering as well.
Yes.
So I thoroughly appreciate the Edgar Allan Poe cup. Can I see it again?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Now, did you get that down in Maryland or
Yeah, down in Baltimore.
Baltimore? Nice.
I drove down for the 200th anniversary, and they did a whole reading in the cemetery, and there's a big after party, and it was sweet.
So you taught American Lit. Did you get to teach Poe?
I did. It was one of my favorite parts.
I know. I teach British literature to juniors, and it's not obviously in the curriculum. And my freshmen, I didn't get anything in this year with that, but I did put the monkey's paw in there, which is a little Poe-esque, you know.
Did you get to do 1984?
Did not do 1984. I teach small group special ed.
Okay.
I'm not really able to come up with an adaptive version of the 1984 novel. I haven't seen one yet.
There's a similar one. There's a similar one that we used. I can't remember the name, but it was about, I mean, disturbingly, a school shooting, and it was kind of like on their level, and used a lot of like, you know, or they thought there was going to be a school shooting, and they jumped in with.
Okay. I'm drinking seltzer tonight.
Yes, I have Diet Peach Snapple.
I missed our last broadcast, and I'm sorry to everybody. I had the flu. I missed 4 days of work, and I was on 2 rounds of antibiotics. So I just finished today with my last one. So I can't really drink anything yet. But I have Easter vacation next week, so I plan on drinking a little bit during break.
Very good.
Yeah, right. Are you on break next week?
Yeah, we start this Friday.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Me too. Me too. Okay. So I want to, Jonathan, should we get started with introductions?
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Okay. So Jonathan and I and Luke's away actually this week, so he won't be joining us.
He's in Japan.
Very exciting, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good excuse, right?
I guess so.
Why not? So we've been talking about how, you know, expanding our program and bringing in different guests. And earlier in the school year, I went to a presentation of my colleague, Marcy Marks. She's in the audience tonight. Marcy, are you in the audience? I saw your name before. Where is she?
Marcy.
No, okay, wait. Let me see. Where is Marcy? I'm looking for her. Okay, so Marcy did this really great presentation with our department on gamifications. And she saw Chris Aviles, who's our guest tonight, present, I believe, at Ed Camp. Is that correct, Chris?
Probably.
Okay. And came back with this great plan for motivation. Now, we're high school teachers, so a lot of disconnected kids, a lot of kids that aren't motivated. And she gave such a great presentation, right? So I was like, I remembered your website because she showed it to us. And she just talked so highly of him. So I texted her 2 weeks ago and I said, Marcy, what was his name again? So she gave me all your information, and I loved it.
Oh, cool.
And, yeah, and so Chris's blog is techedupteacher.com. You are a New Jersey former high school English teacher, right?
That's right.
And now currently you are your district's one of the tech coaches?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you want to add anything? You want to talk about what you do in Monmouth County? Do you want to say your district?
Yeah, I'm in the Fairhaven School District.
And what do you do for them? Like, what's your typical day?
My typical day is I start out with doing our makerspace kind of thing that we made. We call it Innovation Lab, and I work with K through 3 along with the great co-teacher June Sustick, and we work with our little guys. I try to teach them design and engineering, some Google apps for education stuff. We have Minecraft. We build with Legos. We do some hour of code. kind of getting them ready for what I do in the afternoons at the middle school is I run Knollwood Labs along with my other great co-teacher, Katie Smith. And we have 5th and 6th grade kids, and we do some serious design and engineering, computer science, digital arts like making podcasts, editing videos, making apps. And I'm actually going to unleash very shortly what I think is the first ever online store, because I'm trying to make my makerspace self-funded. So I basically built Amazon, and the kids are going to sell their goods that they make in the makerspace and offer their services like computer repair, graphic design to the community. Yeah, and so they're all going to have their own little vendor page, and I'm really hoping to build a pretty nice school store so we could be self-funded, just because I think that's really important with the way things are going. And it'll help me teach the kids entrepreneurship, which I think is the next big thing. And so when I'm not doing those two things, I work with teachers in the classroom to kind of amplify what they're doing with educational technology.
Oh my God, Jonathan, the online store part, did that just totally make your ears like, that's amazing.
Sounds so cool.
That's like, I want to, first of all, I want you as my teacher. That's really cool. Oh my God, the graphic design work. I'll be checking that out because I have a blog and I'm always looking for design work. And you know, hold on. My children have to make an appearance, Chris, every week.
Oh, absolutely.
Broadcast. They'll do it and then they'll get out. Hold on.
Well, while she's out there, I'm Jonathan Stevens. I'm from Created for Learning. I taught English basically since September 10th, 2001, and creative writing as well. So yeah, our store is Created for Learning, www.creativeforlearning.com, and yeah, so there we go.
Okay.
Who are you? Who are you up in that corner? Danielle, tell about yourself.
Okay. All right, everybody. This is Christopher and Cameron. They're not a part of the show, but they always have to come in and say hello. I'm Danielle Knight. I'm a New Jersey high school English teacher. I teach small group instruction. My blog. Okay. Can you shut the door for me? Okay. My blog is studyallnight.com. I teach like in a blended learning environment. We're not quite paperless, but I would like to go in that direction in September, to be 100% paperless. I started this. How many weeks have you been doing this, Jonathan? About a month, 2 months?
The show? This is our third one.
The third one? Okay, so about a month. And, okay, can you get out? I'm sorry. Is there a censor button? No, get out. All right, I'm sorry. We have an audience member I'd like to join in, Jonathan. Her name is Marcy Marks, and she's like our front runner supporter for what Chris talks about at his Ed Camp presentations for gamification with the motivation. Marcy, you want to join in? Just go ahead and click the seat.
What happened?
And she'll click in. There she is. Okay, she's calling in. Okay, I'm gonna accept it. Okay, she's coming in. Okay. Hi, Mars.
Hi, I don't look as pretty as Danielle. I'm sorry. I didn't know I was really coming online.
Oh. Yeah, Marcy, I get ready for this. Oh, wait, is Jonathan?
And I have 3 kids yelling here, too. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go sit over there, please. Okay. We lost Jonathan.
It's a good
Okay.
time with the
So,
kids.
Marcy. Okay, so I know Marcy's moving around her house. So, Chris, Marcy's the one who introduced you to us with what you do with the gamification. So, Mars, do you want to talk about what you do in your classroom? Because it's awesome.
Sure. Chris, I saw you at Ed Camp in North Brunswick, and I do gamification, not as well as you do, but I try to do it as best as I can.
Good.
It's been super, super positive.
Oh, excellent.
Especially with the special needs kids with making up assignments. I remember you telling me about WD-40, how it took the guy 40 times to do it. And
Absolutely.
I a lot of my teachers to do that. and it seems to be working.
Yeah, it's I had this conversation today because we were talking about our innovation lab and kind of planning how we're going to continue to roll out the store and what things look like next year. And I've always kind of really believed that you can care about a kid's learning or you can care about a kid's grade, but you can't actually care about both. And,
right.
I'm starting to find that the science is even showing grades and learning, if you want a kid to learn, they have to be able to fail. And so I'm glad to hear that you rolled out the ability to redo work in your class, because that made a big difference when I was teaching my high school kids. And even in my elementary and middle school experiences, the ability for kids to redo something over and over again until they're happy with the final product, I think is really valuable for their learning. And if you look at video games, that's exactly the way a video game is designed.
Right. We actually used it in the behavior room right now, too. Actually, they work on an entire point system.
Awesome.
To earn privileges, to just get status in order to do things. And it's made a big difference, I think. I think I got everybody on board with it, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Especially this time of the year, Chris, I find that motivation starts to tire many of our, it tires me out. I'm starting to roll my eyes, starting to make faces. I'm starting to get a little frustrated. Hearing myself, I finally put the audio on for Macbeth because I was just enough. I got to put the audio on. I was just throwing in the towel, But I was trying to think of different type of motivation this week before having you on the show. And I looked down at my wrist and I have a Fitbit.
There you go.
Yeah. Motivation. And Marcy's actually, I'm in a group with her and it's competition. And that keeps me motivated. It keeps me on track, especially during the work week. And my students, when I was thinking about what my kids like to work for, keeping track, they love free time. That seems like the one motivator. I just wish I could be more creative with it.
Right.
You have free time to do this, but then it's not free time anymore.
Right. Well, it sounds like what you might benefit from is rolling out some type of passion project. If you look at a lot of this research, and I guess Danielle Pink probably summed it up best, what motivates people is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And Marcy and I just talked about mastery, the ability to do things over and over again so you're happy with the results. Your kids like free time. In reality, they like autonomy. They like to be able to be self-directed and choose what they want to do. So why not ask your kids, what do you want to learn about? Some people do a genius hour type of thing. Other people do, a passion project that's a day long, a month long. I did a year long with my high school kids. And at the end, they presented a big TED-style talk. I think you're on the right track taking that free time and making it productive. And I think you make it productive by asking your kids what they want to learn about. And in that free time, in that free time that my kids had, they were doing things that were well outside the realm of English. My kids were building in Minecraft. I had a kid who came in was doing electrical work. And I was okay with all that because the English part to me came in the reflections and the journals that they had to write while they were doing it. That's where I tied my English into it. So I think that would be something that you could give a shot to, give a try.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we just said Genius Hour. Jonathan, did you do anything with Genius Hour?
I never felt like I had permission to. I was learning about. I'd heard about that idea from the last year at my school. The last year, and I heard some of the big businesses, I think it's Zappos or there's a couple of those big businesses that they've started scheduling in an hour a week, kind of like Genius Hour, where and it's more than an hour. They'll do a whole day, or they're playing with those kind of different patterns where your whole day or maybe it's a half a day, twice a month, or something, or every Friday or something like that, to where you have your work on these days, and on Friday you still work, but it's on whatever you want to. And then you come back and you report on it. You can tell about your stories and you share how you're growing and learning during that. And that side project really in so many ways ends up being some of the normal projects that end up being included in the business. Like I've heard about 3M, for instance. The company, 3M started doing this, and so many of their, like, they came up with Post-it, I think was one of their products that wasn't even like one that it came up in one of these side projects, I think, that somebody just liked doing, and now it's like a staple of their business. And if they hadn't created this free exploration time, they never would have even come up with that. And that's crazy to think about, because that's like top 5 in their products, and it might not have existed because free time might not have existed.
And, when I was rolling out, I called mine the Be About It project, because I believe in branding everything that you do to build buy-in and support from the community, the kids, and stuff like that. And when I was doing that research, 3M, from what I understand and read, 3M was the first company to ever give their workers that kind of autonomy just to work on something. And they held them accountable by saying, whatever you work on, we want to hear about it, whether it was successful or whether it was a failure. And then that kind of the idea of a whole day comes from Google, and that's where you get that 20% time. And they've talked about that in different areas. And they said a lot of their bug fixes and products, come from this idea of the 20% time. But the other thing I noticed, Jonathan, is you said that you felt like you never had permission. But we know as a teacher, you don't ask for permission. You have to ask for forgiveness. I would tell you just to go ahead and do it. And, I think if you, as, almost all former English teachers, if you tie it back into reflection, presentations, journaling, that covers your standards. So when they came into my classroom and they couldn't wrap their heads around why kids were doing science experiments and building with Minecraft and taking apart computers. And, I had one girl who made a flower shop, and she was actually making money, like a lot of money. And so she's in my classroom arranging flowers, and then she went to flea markets on the weekend, and she was turning a profit. And so they would come into my classroom, and she's building flowers, and they just couldn't, well, this is an English class, why is she making flowers? And then I showed the journals, the reflections, the presentations. And I think, it's our job as teachers to motivate our kids by thinking outside the box, giving them some of that autonomy and mastery. And in a lot of ways, your Genius Hour gives them purpose, too. I think, hello.
Sorry, that's Madison.
I think a lot of the work that we give students, we have to ask ourselves, a teacher, what's the purpose? A lot of kids don't want to come to school because they don't see a purpose in what they do. A lot of kids will ask, well, why do I have to learn this? What's the point? And sometimes we don't have the right answers.
Yeah. Well, and like, I wish I was still teaching for those reasons, because it was literally like right as I was finishing my last year that I was getting engaged with all of that stuff and thinking, I'm not even at a place in my curriculum that I can step and introduce that right now. But it was so intriguing to me, and just like, so I was in the box, in the box education, trying to make it interesting. And I feel like I was doing really well, but and trying to give them autonomy within the choice I gave them instead of like just giving them carte blanche autonomy and then taking all of those autonomous choices and bringing them in and showing the connections and making those connections. Like, I hadn't gotten there, and that's really intriguing to me. And I would absolutely love being in a classroom like that if there were parts of it that were that.
We know.
I'm interested in how do you corral all of that to where, I guess it doesn't have to be unified, but to where, I don't know, you can make the connections for the students besides just that it's their own project. I'm seeing poor internet signals here. Is this me or is it you?
I'm okay here. Jonathan, you're fine. Marcy, you're good?
I'm good.
All right.
Well, I think, Jonathan, that's a complicated question. And then I actually, with Justin Schleidler at Ed Camp South Jersey this weekend, we had a really interesting conversation about student voice and when is there too much student voice. And I was making the point that if I gave my kids total, student voice, they could talk, all my kids would eat ice cream for dinner. And we know ice cream for dinner isn't the right thing to do. And Justin also brought up a great point that his job as a teacher is to push kids outside of their comfort zone. And so if we're constantly allowing kids to do what they want to do, they're going to take the very natural road of staying comfortable. You know, student voice, I think, is really valuable, but I kind of feel as the teacher that we need to be the benevolent dictator. You know, I set structure for my kids in the idea of, well, we have to learn about Edgar Allan Poe, you know, and we have to learn, you know, X, Y, and Z, but you can have some choice in the order. And I think the biggest thing is asking students, how do you want to show me what you learned? And that was a really big thing for me is, okay, we have to learn this, but how do you want to show me what we learned? And, you know, I remember once we read Romeo and Juliet, and one kid built the globe out of popsicle sticks. Another kid built, you know, the globe in Minecraft and did a whole screencast. I had kids who wrote papers because they like papers. I had kids who did a presentation. And so I would give my kids, you know, choices in what they do with inside the structure that I have to get to. As much as I would love for content to all but go away, you know, because I think it's more skills that are going to make our kids successful. Right now, they want us to, you know, content. So I provide as much choice as I can with inside that content. And really the best way, and especially if you teach kids that struggle, or you teach kids that are less motivated, if you allow them to choose how they want to show what they learned, especially if you have create options. A lot of my toughest kids loved to work with their hands. You know, these are the kids that would go into the vocations. They weren't really going to college. They wanted to be electricians and mechanics. And so by allowing them to create something that they wanted to create to show me what they learned, we kind of hit a middle ground, I think, where they were motivated to do it because it was on them and how they wanted to do it.
Yeah, I'm reminded, when you were talking, it reminded me of a student I had years and years ago who he was a freshman in high school, was already working in a welding shop, loved welding, and we're studying, I don't know what piece of literature, and he comes up to me after. He was really respectful, and he goes, really, Mr. Stevens, like, I'm already doing this. When am I going to use this? And I had to tell him, you know, you might not, like, but you're going to use the themes and the meanings, and that's why we're talking about this, because you got to know what it means to be a human. And part of the reason this used to be called humanities is because it's learning to be a human. But at the same time, like, if I had these kinds of ideas where I could have been outside the box enough to let him bring his welding into freshman literature and, like, marry those two ideas, he would have been so engaged, because it would have brought the meaning to what he already knew he wanted to do for his life, and that would have been really empowering. I see, like, right?
Yeah, and that's what I've tried to do for the last, you know, 5 and 6 years, and it's made a big difference, you know. And going back to kind of the topic of motivation here, especially we talked a little bit about teachers before. I think teachers burn out so quickly is because they want to control everything. And when you have total control, you know, when you want total control and you're in front of the classroom and you're trying to dictate every single thing that happens, that gets really stressful. You get tired. And so taking that path of saying, hey, guys, we have to learn this, but there's options for you to express yourself and do what you want to in this, you know, and considering different ways to approach the content rather than everything is drill and kill, direct instruction, lecture, multiple choice test at the end, or an essay. You know, I mean, even the way I changed essays in my class when I was teaching high school English is I got rid of the essay, and every kid had a blog. And instead of writing a 5-page essay, they wrote a blog. And, you know, one of the things I thought was funny is it got rid of that whole obsession with 5-paragraph essay. I would give my kid a 3-page paper, you know, before I switched over, and they would write 5 paragraphs, no matter how many pages of paper I gave them. But when you give them a blog, and I would share it out on Twitter, they could see who was looking at it, from where they got comments and likes from other schools around the world. And I use Blogger, Google Sites, and you can track that stuff on the back end. Kids love to get likes and comments and see where they do it. And so all of a sudden now they're empowered because they have an audience. You know, even today I still try to push out my kids' work to a larger audience because a kid will never be more careful and thoughtful when they realize the entire world is going to see their work, right? If they're just giving me an essay, they're tired of me, you know. I'm not new and shiny after November. I'm just a, you know, Mr. Aviles, and I don't have to impress him anymore. but they always want to impress each other. They want to impress people who, you know, and if the power of social media is really exciting, because my kids got really some great connections. You know, people we got to bring in, and people who read it, and people I connected them with. And so I think that's something we can do as teachers, not to get so burned out, is we have to learn to kind of give up some control a little bit. And, you know, you said you're in a blended classroom. I think blending the classroom is one of the best things a teacher can do. I really think that kids learn best when they learn online with a teacher in the room for support. You know, it's no longer about us. Because even think about the way the schools used to be. Teachers used to be the keeper of knowledge, right? They used to come to the schoolhouse because the books were there. We had all the information. It's not like that anymore. You know, information is everywhere. And to think that school is about getting information now is not, it's incorrect. You know, when something breaks in my house, I go on YouTube and watch a video about how to fix it. You know, so information is no longer locked in the classroom inside the teacher. Information's all over, and now we need to start transferring over. How do we find good information? How do we develop the skills to act on that information? How do we, in a world of information, you know, in a world full of white noise where there's almost too much information, you know, how do we stand out, and how do we, you know, make a difference, make a change? You know, we were laughing the other day. I was talking to the kids, and we kind of decided the greatest thing about the internet is everybody has an opinion. And then we decided the worst thing about the internet is everybody has an opinion. So
I just went through this thing where I was showing one of my grade 9 students how to find a reliable source on the internet. He was like, oh, this candidate said this in the campaign, and this candidate said that in the campaign. I said, show me the website. And he showed me some obscure website, and I was like, okay, that's not a good source. Like, I was just trying to, like, show him that that candidate actually didn't say it. But I wanted to comment that you basically summed up my last 2 weeks in my classroom for being, like, really tired, because I had to take back the control and finish the Shakespeare plays before break. And I felt all this pressure that we were gonna read, we were gonna get it done. This is what we had to do. And I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Where prior to that, I was more like a facilitator with the Chromebooks and the center tasks and, you know, the choice of the activity. I had to take that back, and oh my God, you know, and even the kids were burned out.
And let me ask you, though, in that whole process, something else I found to be really liberating for me, could you have outsourced any of the stuff that you were trying to do to the kids? Could the kids have done handing out the Chromebooks, turning on the Chromebooks? I outsource a lot of the work that I, you know, used to do as a teacher. You know, I have student experts who go around and help kids at a certain point. And we
Marcy and I, we work in a school environment where we promote student-centered tasks at the high school, and Marcy does this a lot too, where we have peer experts.
Exactly, and you know what I even found with that is, as I'm in my innovation lab, and so we'll have Minecraft experts, we'll have coding experts. I have to institute the expert rule because so often my expert kids always want to wind up doing it for the person. And so in the innovation lab, I say the expert rule is you have to keep your hands behind your back at all times. And I even catch myself doing that. Is I try to explain something to a kid, they don't get it right away, and I have to stop myself from grabbing the mouse and being like, look, I'll do it for you. And I don't know, I think giving kids, like you said, student-centered tasks, you know, and even something I used to do and still do all the time is I apologize to kids all the time. Hey guys, you know, I wanted to get this done, but I'm sorry I didn't. You know, and a lot of times we're like, oh, you know, we can do it this way, or can we help? Or, you know, what I love is kids are super forgiving. You ever notice that? Like, kids are really forgiving. And I think we're a lot harder on ourselves because we don't want to disappoint our kids.
Yeah.
When in reality, in my experience, when you treat kids like adults and, you know, explain to them, look, I wanted to do this and I couldn't get to it because of why, and here's what we're going to do instead. Kids are usually pretty cool about, oh, you know, it's all right, Mr. A, we'll get it next time. And, you know, I'd have kids high-five me and, hey, good try, teach. You know, they're funny about that. And, you know, for a long time, I taught really tough kids. And I would apologize to them, and they were usually pretty cool about it.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes left. Anybody have any questions from the audience? We want to wrap things up because we typically try to do a half-hour show. But Chris, oh my God, we're going to want you to come back, right?
Happy to. It's fun.
We'd love for you to come back.
Yeah,
I can you have my. I'm like, Marcy, you thinking about stuff? I love the peer expert thing with the hands behind the back, right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
So Chris, one thing I was thinking, it's actually this question over on the side, which got me thinking about the question, but like the difference between high-level students and low-level students. I know this is asking about a test, but like differentiation just seems like it would be so easy because each of the students is pursuing at their own level. But yet I wonder if one of the difficulties you have is that that it's hard to gauge how far you need to push the students. Like, because I know I had students, especially my honor students, that even if I gave them autonomy and like pursue this thing, they would get lazy in that for sure. And they would say, look how much I already did. I've already did it. And I'd say, what else can you learn in that? And then I feel like I would be chasing all these rabbits trying to move the carrot a little further down. How do you deal with that?
So I think it's a couple of things. I think in a grand sense, and hopefully people don't take this wrong, I think in a grand sense, people over exaggerate differentiation. I really do believe that all things being equal, if somebody wants to learn something and you give them enough time, they will. I really think time is the biggest differentiator. And the reason why I love blended learning is my kids are learning online at their own pace, self-directed. And so a lot of my problems when I pushed my blended learning, my work online with blended learning, when I made videos, review videos, so kids can watch the videos over and over again, my kids who wanted to learn it did. Unfortunately, even when my class was totally, you can redo the work over and over again until you're happy with your grade, I still had kids who failed. And a lot of that had to do with there was some bigger issue at home with them that, there's only so much I could do as a teacher, and so I still have kids who failed. For my kids to challenge them, I found the easiest way to challenge my kid is to say yes, and my kids would say, "Can I do this?" I'd say, "Oh yeah, yes, and why don't you do that too?" Or and why don't you wrap it up this way? And so for really challenging kids, yes, and what else can you do? So yes, and was always the easiest way for me to challenge my kids.
I love that. Yes, and. So much better than but. And is so much better of a word than but.
I have to remember that.
I think that's what it means to be a good leader, whether you're a teacher leader, or I would love to have that philosophy or see that philosophy out of more administrators. I'm very lucky that I work in a fantastic open-minded district, because when I came to them and said, I want to create this crazy class called Innovation Lab, they said, yes, and. And then I said, I want to build an online store, and they said, yes, and. And so I think, could you imagine if you had these really great ideas, like you mentioned before, you went to Genius Hour to your administrator, and they said, yes, and we want you to do something at the end of the year for the Board of Ed, or yes, and we want you to do this, or yes, and we want you to do this. So often it's yes, but, what if? And do you ever notice, too, when it comes to that kind of stuff, people always focus on the exception? What about that one kid who's going to do this? Instead of managing the exception, we shut down entire programs, because that one person might do something. That one type of kid may do something. And so I think that's a big motivation killer.
Okay, we're gonna go sleepy.
Yeah, think of how many kids that if they had every Friday to work on the project they wanted to work on under your guidance at school, like. Yeah, there'd be problems, but there's always problems, right? Let's think of how much could happen and how much learning we could guide. You're building a store, Like I had kids who were designing illustrations and didn't know what to do with them. That one kid was starting a reffing business, but like if he could have done that in class and written, that would have been great.
And I think it's kind of reaching the kids where they're at. You know, there's a big push for informational reading and writing. There's a big push for argumentative writing.
Yeah.
You know, that could be tied into what kids are passionate about. You know, that really can be tied into the kid who wants to weld. You know, I can tell, even in my innovation lab, my kids make argumentative videos and write all the time about things that they want to do, because if they want to bring something in, they got to kind of prove to me that it's valuable. And so one instance is my kids wanted to start to mod Minecraft. Well, they have to basically apply why they want to mod Minecraft, how they want to mod Minecraft, and what benefit does that bring to our innovation lab. And so going through that process and having their voice heard, and then having a discussion about whether that's something that we can do or something that's not right, you know, it empowers a kid. It hits on a bunch of different interdisciplinary cross-curricular standards. And I think ultimately it motivates a kid when they kind of realize that they matter. And so sometimes I think the work that we give and the way that we give it tells a kid that they don't matter. You know, I mean, I have a challenge for you guys. Go back and ask your kids and say, do your teachers underestimate you? And I bet that they will say some of their teachers underestimate what they're capable of. I know at times I underestimated kids. And I found that if I trust my kids, I'm very rarely ever let down by what they do.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so the trust part, right? Okay, so now one of my colleagues, actually, Laura Iskowitz, is in the audience tonight.
Yay.
Marcy.
Yay, Laura.
Yeah, Laura, right? She brought up a really good question, and I thought maybe we could end the show on this, because motivation is really big with our behavioral students. And how could we use motivation? Laura's question is, how about behavioral issues? How do you motivate when they just don't seem to care? Could you talk about that for a couple minutes? We'll wrap it up, and that's probably a whole nother show.
Well, I mean, I can give my thoughts on that, and again, they might not be popular, but I've never tried to make a living being popular. Chances are behavior issues are caused by boring lessons. Behavior issues are caused by a view of the student not being respected by the teacher. You know, a lot of times you hear kids say it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. And that's almost like there's not, you know, there's probably not a dialogue going on between teacher and student. Because I've often found, I mean, it sounds crazy, but when I had kids who were behavior issues, and I had kids who, you know, even when they could make up the work and over again, still were failing, I sat down, whether it was during class, after school, whenever I could find them, and say, what can I do as a teacher to help you be successful? Okay. And so, you know, you have kids with a behavior issue, sometimes you ask them. And I've had kids who tell me, Aviles, this class is boring. How can I make it not boring for you? What can I bring in? What do you want to do? So I think that has a lot to do with it. And again, I think a lot of times too, there's some stuff that's going on outside the classroom, at home, in different areas that kids bring into the classroom. And unfortunately, you know, you can't always solve that for them. But I think to motivate students and behavior issues, I mean, I think always having an engaging lesson where kids have some voice and choice in what they're doing, and it's somehow in their wheelhouse. I mean, I remember making lessons about fashion for some of my girls who, you know, wanted to explore that. I actually had to teach myself how to whip stitch, because I'm doing sewing, or I'm going to introduce sewing in the innovation lab, where kids can use conductive thread and lights and sew it into a skirt with a accelerometer. So when they spin, the skirt lights up brighter than when they're just walking. So here I am learning how to sew and researching all of this, because I have 7 or 8 girls who would love this, and they said they would love it because I asked them what they would want to do. So I think, and I taught high school again for 10 years. In the last 18 months, I've been K through 8. I'm still finding if I ask a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th grader what they want to do, they can articulate what they want to do, and I do my best to bring that into the best I can. But if I'm stuck in the mold where I'm in front of the classroom and they're doing what I tell them to, and I'm doing direct instruction and worksheets and multiple choice tests, I don't have time to bring in what they want to do, and probably not even have that discussion.
Going upstairs.
So I don't know. It's tough. I ask my kids what motivates them, And going back to, you know, I think the easiest way for a teacher to digest motivation is going back to Danielle. Give your kids autonomy, give your kids mastery, which is the right to fail forward, and purpose. And a lot of the purpose can be asked by, well, what do you want to do? Push it out to, you know, the work out to a wider audience, or I think a lot of it can be solved with relationships, and I think a lot of it can be solved with taking that time to get to know your kid. It's still,
yeah.
I have to go, guys. Sorry, it's bedtime.
Yeah, I was gonna wrap it up too. But I have all these ideas now, Mars. All right, Marcy just exited. Okay. Thank you, Marcy. Okay, she's probably logging off. But I have like a week left of the marking period, and I have an idea now what I'm going to do that week.
Good.
I'm going to go back to the choice. I'm going to go back to the autonomy.
Yeah.
We also got park coming up.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I know.
I run the park in my district. I can't wait. I'm very excited.
Oh, you're right. I know, right? And then yeah, I think this will give them a really good opportunity too to bring up their grade. I think given the opportunity for success too, you know, let's end the third marking period on a good note rather than.
Well, and don't forget too, you need to give yourself as a teacher the right to fail. You know, I had a meeting with my co-teacher today. We went and got pizza. We talked about innovation, like what's working, what's not. And I feel like a lot of teachers get into this mentality of going, well, you know what, this isn't working right now, and what I'll do next year is this. I change it up on my kids all the time, week to week. I say, guys, this is how I feel about what's going on, and here's the changes we're going to make. So don't be afraid to experiment as a teacher. You know, if you want to try autonomy in this way and you find it's not working, don't be afraid to tell your kids, say, hey, guys, we're doing it this way, and I think we can do it better, and we're going to try it this way. And like I said, kids are super forgiving. You know, they're not, you know, they haven't been adultified where if you make a mistake, everybody, you know, wants to fire you and all this stuff. So I think you as a teacher, you have to give yourself the ability to adapt and change and experiment and fail forward. And when you model that attitude for the kids, it's much easier for them to adopt it in their own life.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. And when you show them that respect and give them that autonomy, it's like a breath of fresh air, and they've hardly ever felt it. And since you're respecting them and their person, of course they're going to respect you and your person. I mean, I just believe that with all my heart. So the more you give them the reins and the trust and the discipline too, when they don't hold up the trust, all of that, they respect you highly that way. So I can see that for sure.
All right, Chris, when are you coming back?
Hit me up. I'll go refill my Diet Peach Snapple and do another round whenever you want.
Oh my God.
Yeah, let's get a cheers here with the red cups. Everybody or the Edgar Allan Poe cup.
Thank you so much. Yep.
Yes.
That was awesome. Chris, was this your first Blab?
This is my first official Blab, yes. I did a quick jump in on a hot seat for 5 minutes, but this is the first time I got to be part of the real deal. So thank you guys for the opportunity.
Well, welcome.
Yeah,
thanks for coming.
Absolutely, guys. Anything you need, feel free to reach out.
I have a feeling we're going to have some ideas after this evening, Jonathan, on future topics, right? I mean, yeah, right.
For sure.
Great.
Yeah,
Chris, thank you so much. I'm so glad I got in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
And it was an honor. Thank you. And thank you to all of our audience members. Have a great night. And Jonathan will be back in 2 weeks, right? All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great spring break.
Bye.